Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Pages to Pixels podcast. I'm Keerthana.
I'm Rohan.
And this week we're talking about the Batman movie. Is that what it's called?
It's just called The Batman, but
It's called The Batman, yeah. We're talking about it this week because they did a re-release.
Yep.
And we thought it was a fun movie to talk about.
Yeah, they did the re-release, I think, to promote the Penguin show that's coming out on HBO. Mm-hmm. So I actually went and I got this awesome...
Yeah.
It's a popcorn bucket.
Mm-hmm.
This is probably the best popcorn bucket so far. I like this more than the Dune one. I like it more than the...
I think there have been some cool
Deadpool
ones.
Wolverine one.
Yeah.
It even lights up. I don't know how it looks on camera, but...
No, it's very cool.
And if it's dark enough, it will create the bat symbol.
Yeah, I don't know if you can tell, but one of us really likes Batman.
Yep.
But before we dive into that, here's the IMDb logline. When a sadistic serial killer begins murdering key political figures in Gotham, the Batman is forced to investigate the city's hidden corruption and question his family's involvement.
I think that's a great logline.
I think so. Yeah. I think it hits all the notes.
Some IMDb loglines, like I remember the title, the whole logline that we did. Really bad logline.
Yeah. Also, production houses are the ones that create these and put them on the pages. So some people take more effort than the others.
So actually, before we jump into this movie, I want to talk about Batman in general. As you mentioned,
yeah,
I'm a fan. And yes, I'm a huge fan. It's probably my favorite comic book character ever.
Mm-hmm.
Really since the Dark Knight trilogy.
Right.
And funny thing, I actually watched The Dark Knight Rises first. I never saw Batman Begins or The Dark Knight. And The Dark Knight Rises is... I'm going to say this. This is not the movie that made me into a screenwriter.
Okay.
But it is the movie that made me into a screenwriter. What I mean by that is... Before watching The Dark Knight Rises, I didn't really go to theaters that often.
Mm-hmm.
I would go sometimes, but it wasn't something that I would do normally.
Right.
Now, there is a correlation of that movie came out when I was about 16, 17. Mm-hmm. That is when I got my driver's license, so it becomes... The movie theaters became something more accessible to me, but I didn't necessarily... going to the movies is not necessarily something that I was really, really excited about. I would not go very often. And I remember... the experience of watching this movie in theaters, which is, it's an interesting experience because it's still one of my favorite experiences of all time. This is before we had reserved seating.
Oh.
And so I went in with my friends and we got there super late. And most of the seats were taken. There was like a couple of stray ones here, but there was 3 of us and we were like, okay, we're not going to sit separately. So we sat on the stairs. So, I think that movie's like 2 hours and 45 minutes. We were sitting on the stairs. And yeah, it's still to this day one of my favorite experiences. And I think that's what really made me fall in love with movies in general. So that's not when I decided I want to be a screenwriter, but it made movies my favorite kind of weekend pastime. And slowly but surely, I went from just loving movies and watching them to also wanting to create them.
Right. Well, my history with Batman is not as extensive as yours. I mean, I've watched the Nolan trilogy. I have watched this Batman. This is the Robert Pattinson Batman.
Yep.
And I've also watched the Justice League movie.
Yeah.
I mean, despite the fact that I haven't watched like the single Batman movie that came out or wasn't profoundly changed by the Nolan trilogy, I still have been very surrounded by the piece of media. I feel like it's very hard
to ignore.
It's very hard to ignore. On Facebook, it used to be people's profile picture. And I mean, I watched the Nolan trilogy when I was in high school because this guy that I liked was really into Batman. So I was like, I might as well watch it. And it was a fun watch. I genuinely enjoyed those movies. This Batman movie, this is the Batman.
Yep.
So. This movie, I watched it in the theaters, but I watched it after a full day of classes in grad school, and I did the worst thing. Okay, so after school, I went to Starbucks.
Yep.
And I got their largest Trenta.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I got that, and I got it, and it was just a cold brew. Like there was no milk in it. We were going for a midnight showing.
Yeah.
And I drank that whole thing, and like. I think maybe 15, 20 minutes into the movie, like I started feeling the crash. and it was so bad because like my eyes would shut, and I was in one of those prime seats which moves when there's like an action scene.
Oh yeah.
So what used to happen, like what happened throughout the movie, was like my eyes would almost shut, and then like a glaring noise and lights would hit my face, and my seat would shake. It was a nightmare. But then I rewatched the movie, I think twice now after that, and it was a fun movie. I mean, it was a good movie. I'm not gonna say fun movie.
What elements of the film did you guys like?
Yeah, honestly, like this movie is a movie I love. I watched it twice in theaters when it first came out. I haven't watched it since till yesterday, and there's always a fear where when you watch a movie initially and you love it, a few years later you watch it again when the hype dies down.
Yeah,
are you still gonna love it? I think I liked it even better this time around. And the thing that I want to say is like, I think this movie captures this extremely well. Where, for me, what makes Batman more compelling than other comic book characters is, and I told you this before, but it's the way he wears his mask or what the mask is, because. Spider-Man, at his core, his character is Peter Parker, but he wears the mask of Spider-Man to hide the fact that he is Peter Parker.
Right.
For me, Batman is the reverse. At his core, he is Batman. That is what he thinks of himself as. That is what he's obsessed with.
Right.
And he puts on the mask of Bruce Wayne when he goes out in public to hide the fact that he is Batman.
Right. No, that's a very interesting way to look at it. I think I like the gender. I mean, to start off with, it was a very interesting story. I also really liked a lot of the stylistic choices they made. It definitely felt very immersive. I thought they spent a lot of time and effort in world building and doing that stylistically.
When you say stylistically, like what style do you think is evoked from the film?
It almost feels neo-noir.
100%.
And I think I especially like that because when movies do that, they just become more like real and believable.
Yeah.
Because you're now like taken into this pocket of the world where the rules seem more like the world building becomes more concrete when it is followed through in the visuals also.
Yeah. I think Gotham as a city was very interesting in this movie. It feels like a character. Even if I love The Dark Knight, The Dark Knight, Gotham felt like any
city. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, a lot of I think the way they use the architecture, the camera work was very impressive. Some of the lenses they used.
Cinematography is beautiful.
Yeah. I like what they did with the lighting as well.
Yeah. Greg Fraser should have been nominated, in my opinion.
Oh, was he not?
No, he was not nominated. And I believe it was Roger Deakins himself who said that was the best cinematography all year.
Right.
And the only reason they didn't nominate it is because of snobbery.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's very unfortunate. I mean, it exists.
When it comes to characters other than Batman himself and the Riddler, who else stood out in the cast to you?
Ooh, that's a good. I think I have 3. Four actually.
He just proceeds to list the cast.
5. Okay, the people who really.
You have to pick
really stood out. Okay, fine. If I have to pick 3, I'll do Catwoman. Penguin. And Falcone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I thought they did a great job. I thought the person who played Penguin like really stood out.
Colin Farrell?
Yes. What?
Yeah. You don't know? Did you not know that?
No, I didn't even see it.
Yeah, it's Colin Farrell.
No, but I thought it was very convincing, obviously, because I didn't even like look behind like who this person was. I thought he was so scary.
He was so good,
especially in the midpoint scene when there's a big like confrontation fight scene thing that happens where Batman and Penguin are like
is it the car chase?
Yeah, after the car chase,
right.
They have him up against a wall, and there's no power in this person's hands, but he's just like fearless. It's beautiful.
Yeah. Fearless, cracking jokes.
Yeah, which honestly, that's a great joke to crack because I thought that the 2 characters, Batman and
Riddler.
No,
Gordon.
Gordon. Sorry,
Yeah.
I was about to say Gary Oldman.
He played Gordon in the other in Dark Knight, yeah.
So I know those characters like have a lot of chemistry in general,
but
in this movie it was so pronounced, like they were finishing each other's sentences.
Yeah.
It was kind of cool. I was shipping them at one point.
I mean, I know we were talking about characters, but so what did you think of Robert Pattinson? Because he got a lot of controversy when he got cast.
Okay, well, my version of Robert Pattinson in my head is first Cedric Diggory, and then Edward, and then I lost track of his career for a while. And then
you didn't watch the movie where Nicole Kidman pees on him?
What?
Wait, that might have been Zac Efron.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll fact check that and cut it. No, but I just completely lost track of his career for a really long time after that. And then I found out that he was going to play Batman, which was interesting. I thought he did great. It definitely felt like a very different version of Batman.
I think they really leaned into making him. Yeah. It's also because I know one of the criticisms that he got was, hey, he didn't do the duality of Bruce Wayne very well, where he's like super suave playboy guy in public. My defense for that is you don't necessarily see him in public. The only scene where he's out in public is at a funeral. So you're not expecting someone to be like a playboy. Yeah.
I also wonder if the way this version of Batman was written, I actually didn't even read Bruce Wayne that way. To me, actually how this character read was he read a lot younger than Robert Pattinson is. Like, if I were to go into this without any context, without knowing who Batman was or anything, I would have put his age at, like, early 20s. And I'm talking, like, purely based on behavior.
They do say it's his second year.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's, like, brooding, you know, like, young guy trying to figure things out. And I thought he did that really well. Especially that one scene when the paint is still, like, melting off his face. I thought he was solid in that.
I like that because... I mean, with all the live action Batman, they've had like the eyeliner. You kind of have to, but it's like the moment they take off the cowl, it's gone. It's like no, you would have to wipe it off first.
No, I mean I thought that was a really cool like look choice as well.
Yeah.
What did you think of him?
I thought he was great. I had seen a few of his other movies, mostly or most notably Good Time. If you watch Good Time, you're like, okay. Robert Pattinson can act. He's great.
Got it.
And then after seeing that movie is when they announced him as being Batman, and I was on board. A couple things that I also want to mention. This is more, I guess, story-wise. I mean, you mentioned it being a neo-noir. I agree. It feels more inspired by movies like Chinatown and Seven, as opposed to, other superhero movies. And also, I felt like it had something to say about society, and they kind of contained it within Gotham City in this movie, but I think the themes that they're hitting on are relevant on, like, the country and the world as a whole.
Yeah. I see what you mean, especially when it comes to the whole neo-noir comparison and Chinatown, because Catwoman's character definitely reads... femme fatale right from the start. Also, when she turns around and said, "Because he's my father."
Yep.
I feel like that was almost an homage. Yeah. No, I'm really glad that they made that they leaned so hard into the genre choices. That they were doing.
And just a few other shout outs. Sound design was incredible, especially when the Batmobile starts up originally. Especially seeing it in a Dolby theater, that's one of those moments where you can just feel it in your seats. The score, score was great, and just like little Easter eggs even in the score where he's fighting the Riddler goons at the end, and they're playing the 1960s Batman theme.
I thought that the way they switched from... Because music always does that on screen, where like it's kind of almost telling you how to feel about a certain moment. I liked how they switched into the little romance track that they had for Batman and Catwoman,
and it was a great track.
Yeah, it was, and I just thought that the switch was very seamless. Because these are all very high stakes, like high stakes situations where like the danger is very apparent. So it was interesting how well they were able to find those like pockets of lighter moments within that narrative. Overall, it was very, very enjoyable. But that being said, what kind of didn't work for you?
I mean, okay, so this movie as a whole works, and I talked last time in our cuckoo discussion about the macro versus the micro,
Right.
and I made the argument that a lot of movies are gonna mess up on some of the micro stuff, but as long as I get the macro stuff, it's kind of always forgiven.
Yeah.
For me, any issues I have with this movie are kind of the micro stuff. There's like a few scenes where it's like, okay, I don't know, that works. That Joker scene, it felt a little bit fan servicey. You take it out, it doesn't really impact the movie. There's a couple of shots here and there where it's like, okay, maybe you could have cut like 2 seconds earlier. And then the scene, some of the scene at the end where they're on the motorcycles and it's Catwoman and Batman riding side by side, and it's like, okay, they're going back and forth. It felt a little bit like a you hang up, no, you hang up, and
yes,
it was,
I see what you're saying.
It was a little bit silly, but as a whole, it worked. I think one thing that I would have also preferred the movie to do is the third act did get a bit big.
Yeah.
In the sense that the movie felt very small, where it was murder of this person, murder of that person, murder of this. It was what Riddler was trying to go for was specific people, and then I felt like I wish it had stayed smaller and contained as opposed to doing a big flood for the entire city. Now I get why they made that decision for Batman's character arc, and I honestly I don't know what they could have done other than that. So it's not necessarily a knock. I do wish it could have just stayed a little bit more contained.
Yeah. I'm gonna disagree on that one.
Okay.
Not the micro macro part. I agree, and I feel almost exactly the same with this film because I feel like the big picture worked. So doesn't like now we're just nitpicking almost.
Yeah.
But when you're talking about the scale, I actually thought right from the beginning it was a large scale plot almost because yes, like he's killing one person, but all the people he's killing are influential people.
Yeah,
and it's not like and I can see how the murder of each of these people is going to impact the larger city.
Yeah.
So it almost felt like a natural escalation of what was happening. So that didn't really bother me. The runtime did.
Okay.
And I'm not saying that because so if I have to describe this film in one word, I would say it's indulgent.
Okay.
It indulges into everything it does, and that's great. I think one of the repercussions of that is that they have an almost 3-hour runtime.
Right.
I started like feeling fatigue almost at the end of like Act 2B.
Yeah.
It was a little. It was long. That, and then I think the other thing that kind of took me out of the story was some of the dialogue. By that I mean it's. Like they're not trying to be anything else. Like they're telling you this is a movie, and the language they use feels like movie language. But I thought in some of the places it was almost a little cheesy.
Oh, okay.
And I mean, I'm trying to think of an example, and I'll tell you if it comes to me. But there were a couple of moments where I was like, it was quite clear that something was exposition. Like I think some of the conversations between Batman and Gordon. Definitely came across like a little too much exposition, like straight like it was just almost fed to us.
Yeah.
I think that was my only real issue. I think otherwise everything else was very smooth. I did say that I think the runtime is long, but I don't know like where I would cut.
You would cut. Yeah. I understand the runtime thing. I do think. Listen, I was never bored in this movie. I was never really tired, but I did feel that like.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, this movie is definitely long. Like, and it's not one of those where, sometimes when you watch like a comedy, but it's super long, but it's like if it's keeping you laughing the entire time, you're like, oh wait, that only felt like an hour and a half, but it's 2 hours because this movie, it is long, and because the pacing is not the way that, for example, Infinity War is just as long, but it's like there's so much happening.
Yeah.
The Batman does say like. the Batman does kind of be like, yeah, it does take its time.
Yeah.
I don't mind that, but yeah, I can understand why.
Yeah, and I don't even think it was boredom. I think it was just fatigue, because
Mhm.
this is not a movie that you can stop paying attention to. Like you have to pay attention to almost all frames. I will say that I thought that some of the POV shots were so effective.
Yeah.
Like especially the club scene. Like it is one of my favorite scenes in the film.
The next Batman film, I believe, releases next year?
2026.
2026.
Yeah.
Okay.
Making it 4 years.
Oof.
What would the focus of the Batman sequel would you focus on? Villains and side characters that are like supporting characters in the Batman universe.
That's a great question.
So yeah, I have my answer. Even though they did tease Joker, what I really want to see is Court of Owls. Now this has not been adapted into anything live action. I know they've done an animated adaptation that was straight to DVD. They didn't do it very well, in my opinion. But the Court of Owls is basically it's a comic run written by Scott Snyder, and basically in it, Batman explores the history of Gotham and learns that there were like the rich families, including his own, like his ancestors, who established a Court of Owls that they would basically use to secretly rule over all of Gotham. And I think, given the subject matter of this movie, I think Court of Owls would fit extremely well into the world that Matt Reeves has created.
Yeah, I think that's a great pitch. Hire him, guys.
Please.
He'll write your next Batman movie. That's a great pitch. I actually don't know what I would what my pitch would be. I mean, instinctively, I can be like the Riddler, and this is an interesting enough character that maybe we can see more of him. And I would say that a cool villain origin story that I have not seen in general yet is you know how the Riddler has all his followers on social media? I feel like if one of them were to turn extremist and become a bigger villain, like that might be a cool thing to see.
Yeah.
But I think outside of that, I don't have a great pitch.
Yeah. Mine would be Robin and Poison Ivy, and it would focus on like eco-terrorism from Poison Ivy. And he has to save Gotham by using some giant snippers. Okay. I do have one quick little game I want to play. And it's called Which Bat Said That?
Oh my god.
So you have to guess which Bruce Wayne / Batman said this, like the one from which movie.
Okay. Yeah, I don't remember the Keaton ones very well, or anything before the Bale ones, but yeah, all right, let's see.
I have no idea. So.
I know this is rigged against you, and that's why I love this game. Okay, here's the first one. It's not who I am underneath, but what
Christian
I do
Bale.
that defines me.
Christian Bale.
Yes, from which movie?
Batman Begins.
Yes, that's correct.
I'm just gonna sit back here.
Hey, you might get one.
Oh, I won't. But go on.
All right, here's one. Good grammar is essential, Robin.
I'm gonna guess this is like a really old.
Yeah, I'm gonna say Adam West, but I don't know. Okay.
Yes,
it just feels like an Adam West thing.
We can give half a point to both of you since Keerthana did say the old one. Here's one. The world only makes sense if you force it to.
Ben Affleck.
Sure. Yeah.
You can beat Batman vs Superman.
Yes, Ben Affleck. Here, I'm trying to get two more.
Or we could just move on to a game that I'm better at.
Hey, you did Rear Window trivia yesterday, knowing full well that's Kevin's favorite movie. So.
Sometimes the truth isn't good enough. Sometimes people deserve more. Sometimes people deserve to have their faith rewarded.
Bale.
Bale again, yes. And the last one is, yes, Father, I shall become a bat.
What?
Is that
Lego Batman? I don't know.
It's a Batman from Batman Year One.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I have no idea what
I think that's also an animated one.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Good job, Rohan.
See, in my defense, the Nolan trilogy lines are just so great.
No, don't defend it.
Yeah.
Like, be happy with yourself. I mean,
he didn't even mention my favorite line from Batman, which is, "Why do we fall? It's so we can learn to pick ourselves back up again."
So,
I knew you knew that one.
That's a very, very cool line.
Mm-hmm.
Let's move on to standout scenes.
I think my standout scene, we talked about this yesterday, and I was talking about the closing scene.
Mm-hmm.
I still think that was a really cool scene because it stuck with me for like 2 years. But after rewatching it, I think it's the scene in which the bomb, like that little sequence when it bursts.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there wasn't much time, and I'm talking screen time, spent on establishing Batman's relationship with Alfred.
Yep.
But when he was opening the thing, like, I felt it.
There was a lot of tension.
It was they did that really well. I think they only appeared in 2, maybe 3 scenes together before that, and they really took the time to establish. They without taking time, they established that relationship very well.
I mean, incredible sequence, and then even when he recovers at the hospital later, that was a great scene.
Solid scene, yeah.
I'm gonna go with the opening scene, not the Riddler opening, but rather the introduction to Batman, where you have that whole thing where you have, first of all, his voiceover. That is some of the best dialogue.
Yeah.
Specifically, I really love the line of, it goes something along the lines of, "They think that I'm hiding in the shadows, but I am the shadows."
Right.
Love that. And then the whole, when he beats up the
kid.
Yeah, the gangsters. And then I also think it just sets up the rest of the movie and his arc very well, where he saved this man, but the man is afraid of him because he is acting as vengeance, not as a symbol of hope. Yeah. So
I thought the arc was solid. I because you mentioned the scene with Alfred in the hospital, that almost felt like Bollywood, if not even like or like even Collywood to me.
Really?
In a good way. Because I think there's a reason that those movies are able to capture so much emotional I don't know, like there's a reason those beats are so strong emotionally with those movies, and that is because of the switch, where this whole time he thinks that his father was a bad person, and then of course the hero's father cannot be a bad person, at least,
but he was
mostly.
Flawed.
Yeah, exactly. He was flawed. But I'm saying, like, ethically speaking, not like a bad person. And that reveal happened there. And it kind of, it's almost like a psychological twist in a way, because it's like twisting Batman around and us as an extension. I thought it was very effective.
Yeah.
It felt like a familiar beat, I think.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed that.
All right. So as a reminder, or if you're new, the way we do scores here is on the script coverage scale of pass, consider, or recommend. Pass if we don't like it, consider if we think it's decent, and recommend if we think it's actually a really great movie. As a reminder, this is not an actual recommendation, it's just a score. How would you score The Batman?
I would say it's a strong consider.
Really?
Yeah.
You gave Deadpool a recommend.
And I stand by it. I think that's a more fun watch than this. Also, here's one thing that if I had to pick one reason that I moved it from recommend to consider, it's because of that voice recording of that girl being killed. It ruined 2 things for me. One is it was unnecessarily violent. Like, I think the message comes across without seeing that violence.
We don't see it though.
Whatever, hear it. It's the same thing. Second thing is, it just seemed like a really convenient voice recording to have.
Yeah, that's the
it felt like plot armor almost a little bit. That pulled me out. So I'm gonna say it's a strong consider.
Okay.
We already know it's pass for you.
No, strong recommend. I mean, I don't think that. Yeah, this is as much as you can. This is as high of a recommend you can get. If this movie were to have come out this year, it would have been my favorite movie of the year so far. But no, I mean, I freaking love this movie. I just felt that, and the reason why, and I know I gave Deadpool a pass, and the reason why I gave that a pass and this I recommend is because I feel like this movie really transcends other superhero movies, and I feel like this is what blockbuster franchise movies should be. It doesn't necessarily all have to be like dark and gritty, but it should feel like it's made by a director and a writer and not by a committee.
A studio, yes.
Because that's what it feels like. This really feels like a Matt Reeves movie. You take him out and put any other director, it's going to be a completely different movie. Well, story-wise and stylistically. It also I feel like it has a story to tell. Again, I feel like Deadpool was built around, let's make these cameos. And then let's figure out like a shoestring way to connect it all and call it a day. This felt like there was a story to tell and a theme that it had something to say as well.
What else do you recommend for people that may like the Batman?
I'm gonna go a little bit on a tangent here, and this is a superhero film. It's not. It doesn't look or feel like the Batman. But I'm gonna recommend this Tamil film called Maaveeran. And the reason I'm recommending that is because it's one of the few films that have been able to be creative about being a superhero film. Because I think the space is so saturated that it's very hard to get a new take. And I think this one did. And I'm pretty sure it's on Prime if anyone wants to check it out.
Okay. So I'm going to recommend Batman The Long Halloween. It's an animated direct-to-video. I don't know if it was DVD or streaming. It might be on Max, HBO Max. I can't say that for sure though.
Right.
But that's kind of, so The Long Halloween is considered one of the best Batman comics ever written. And that one also has that kind of neo-noir feeling to it. And The Long Halloween animated movie is an adaptation of that. And I honestly believe that if The Long Halloween were never written, I don't think that we would have gotten The Dark Knight or The Batman. Because I think that's how influential both of those, or that's how influential that comic was for Batman.
Yeah. Is there anything else you've been watching that you're excited to talk about?
I rewatched actually the first Slam Dunk, which is an anime movie that was, well, there was an anime show called Slam Dunk, and then there was the movie which kind of acts like true ending for that show because that show got canceled. And this movie, it came out last year, and I remember watching last year. It was amazing. The animation was, I think the animation was on par with something like a Spider-Verse. The story was incredible. It had so much heart, so much excitement. The music was awesome. It was one of, if not my favorite movie last year, and it finally is out on streaming now on Netflix.
I found this like very random animated show on Netflix called Chicago Party Aunt. It's fine. It's like a fun watch. I will say that some of the humor was a little lost on me because I'm not from Chicago, and it's very like heavily it's very, very heavily based on the city and like whatever its quirks are. It's a fairly funny show. It's only 2 seasons long, and I just like zoomed through it in like a couple of days. But that's what I've been watching.
Okay. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Pages Pixels. I'm Rohan.
I'm Keerthana, and we will see you next week with a brand new episode. Thank you.
Thank you.